and today I'm going to explain about Europe. Now, number one, what are the components of Europe? Especially about flags. So I'll name each one of them. What you see on the screen here is Gibraltar, Finland. An icy land that lives in the north. This north icy land is covered in various tundras and winds and mountains, and grass fields in the south. Norway, west of Finland and Sweden. It's normally the coastlines of Sweden, mostly. And this country has its capital called Oslo. It's a country where it related more in peace in depth. It's a neutral country because it has great forests, mountains, and long winters. This is Iceland, an island of Norway that is now independent. Now, many people confuse it with Greenland. I get it. It looks green and small. Well, there's a giant land near it called Greenland, its giant neighbor. But it's a neutral country, really in most in depth. Andorra. Andorra is created due to a war. This is the only country that was made from a war between France and Spain during the Napoleon era. It's near Romania. It's a small, thin line, but as you can see here at the map, it's next to Romania, between Ukraine and Romania. It was created during the Soviet era, when the Soviets were in Ukraine, and they decided to progress into Eastern Europe. So that's why we have Andorra today. Bosnia-Herzegovina. Now this country, it was created due to Croatia and Serbia. Croatia colonized this country in the 90s, then Serbia colonized it. So it was like a colonizing pattern. This country was colonized by two flags. First it was colonized, then that country that colonized it was colonized by Serbia. So this one is a Serbian country, then became an Austrian. Now this is Bosnia-Herzegovina, and we're moving on. Luxembourg, a city of Netherlands in the past, but now independent and became a country. Russia, a monarchy and a giant country that broke from the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. Ireland, a part of UK that's still independent from the 18th century. Spain. Spain is the country that borders Portugal and is a part of the Spanish Empire because the Spanish Empire made Spain. Albania. It used to be also a country near Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia. This country is in the southern part of both of them. It used to be a part of Greece in the past, from the 17th century, but now is independent and covered with a lot of communism. Liechtenstein, a part of Switzerland that gave independence during World War II. This land was colonized by the Germans and the Switzerlands because it's a city that Switzerland gave to Nazi Germany. But now it's independent and it's a kind and tiny country. Monaco, a city of France, gotten independent in the 18th century. It was given independence because France could not support the revolution of French and also this tiny country. So when the French became independent from the monarchy, Napoleon made sure this spot was always left alone. Ukraine, another part of the Soviet Union, but mostly it's the main supply chain and it's currently at war right now. If you want to support Ukrainian and learn more, you can go check other websites. Latvia, a warm area near the Russian tundra. It's basically here. It has the Baltic Sea surrounding it, and its neighbors are Lithuania and Estonia. Andorra, this is the part of France and Spain. During the Napoleonic War, France took over Spain and made Andorra. Until then, some parts of the old French, that this French people Spain, created Andorra. Croatia. Now this one is a part of Bosnia, because long time ago they used to align together with the others to make the Austrian Empire, but it's still independent and it crosses the line around Bosnia. Italy. Italy borders Switzerland and France, those two, and it was created during the Roman era. So it still exists today as a pizza making country. France. This was created by Napoleon himself, built France. There was two French revolutions, and hence that's why we have France. France is a bread making country who makes best pastries and has the best handwriting and best language. Romania. This is a country that is not commonly associated with war. This country was built in the form of peacemaking with other countries. It's peacemaking with every neighbor around it, as you can see here, including Russia. And it's normally a market spot for countries to get resources like food, but no weapons. Food, resources, those ones are only allowed in Romania, not weapons. Slovakia. This one is from Russia. It used to be a tiny city of Russia in the Russian Empire. The Russian Empire stretched all the way here in the past. But this country gave independence because it doesn't want to become a Russian state. So it became independent and then served as a new country. Just like Serbia. Serbia was a part of Russia, then it also got independent. We'll learn more about that. Poland. Created from Germany in the French War, when Germany surrendered to France, it's creating Poland. Now Poland occupies this land right now, and it's no longer a part of the Germans. It's now its own country. Estonia, the neighbor to Latvia, and it's the third country. It borders between Finland and Sweden and Russia and Latvia, making a circle around it. It's a nomadic country, because a long time ago, not only the Russians owned it, but also the Norwegian people. So it's Russian and Norwegian speaking. Greece. This is an ancient country. They merged with Macedonia to make the Greece Empire that spread it around this whole area. But it collapsed due to earthquake and sea people. Greece right now is a peaceful country too, not in war with anyone. Netherlands. Netherlands was the main country. It was created due to the French and Germans who fought to create this during the Napoleonic War. Denmark. This is an old country that used to be called the Denmark. People were very royal people at that time. This is the first country also to become royalty in Europe. Hungary. Hungary is a country that is a part of Austria-Hungary. In the past, it used to become an empire of its own, but it never managed to control itself. Hungary right now is a selling company, and it's rich, just like a few other countries here. We'll talk more about them later. Malta, an independent island of Italy. Italy used to own Malta, But Maltese people decided to give independence because they don't want to be owned by Italy. Czech Republic. Czech Republic and Slovakia used to become one country, but they gave up because they wanted equal relationships so they do not start wars. North Macedonia, a part of the Greek Empire. We made it halfway, so since the other countries are simple, I'll rush through them and promise me you get them. Georgia, a transportation site. Serbia, a warfaring nation. Austria, a trading world. And Isles of Man, a peacemaker. Sweden, the nomadic peacemaker of the north. San Marino, another city that became independent. Cyprus, yes, not fully independent, but it's split into two, Cyprus North and Cyprus South. Cyprus South and North make this flag. Switzerland, a peacefaring nation. Holy See, also a peacefaring nation created by the Crusades. Slovenia, a part of Russia. Azerbaijan, also a part of Russia from the Soviet Union. Turkmenistan, another part of the Soviet Union. And Kazakhstan, another one. Portugal, the inventor of football. Germany, the inventor of peace. Lithuania, a calm city to the bottom near Belarus. Turkey, a trading place. Now we'll go in depth. But now in Armenia, another Soviet Union country that now have peace relationships because it does not want to hurt anyone. Montenegro, still an empire, but not a big one. It's just a country that claims itself being an empire. It's not actually an empire itself. So, UK. This is the country that colonized almost the whole world. And Faroe Iceland, an independent country from UK. Belarus, a neutral nation between an ally to Russia. Kazakh, another ally to Russia. And Uzbekistan. Belgium, created through British invading Netherlands. And Armenia. This is another part of Armenia because Armenia is split into two. So now I've discussed about all the countries' names. Now we'll talk about the groups of countries. We'll first start with the communist group. That mainly we'll start with the communist group in Asia, the AS. The AS is another communist group, but it's normally associated by making other communist groups. And the USB, another communist group that specializes in peacemaking. In the process, we have Ukraine, food-bearing. It's the only food-bearing country of the Soviet Union. And we also have Azerbaijan, a transport network for the Soviet Union from Moscow. And also we have Lithuania, another part of the Soviet Union. But Lithuania is the neighbor to the Soviet Union and it's still a part of it. And we finally have Estonia, another part of the Soviet Union who retired from it for 50 years. And finally, we have Russia. Russia, the main part of the Soviet Union, is because Russia, the main part of the Soviet Union, he formed the Soviet Union, and these ones are all the Soviet Union groups. Now, we're now going to talk about the elite team of the East. The elite team mainly consisted of the following countries. Soviet peacemaking team of the East. This one is an independent team from the Soviet Union, and it promotes peace and peacemaking with other countries. Yes. The national voting team that consists Portugal, Germany, Spain, and these countries include for voting, for rights. The nomadic are the Northern European team. They consist of trading, delivery, and exportation from Europe. The Neutral League. This one is a non-community league that anyone can join. The Miniature League. These ones are countries that got independent. These ones are counties that got independent from countries. But most of them are, normally people forget them because they're too tiny to see on the map. Even right now you cannot see them, but if you zoom up, you can. The Polish team that consists of only 3 countries. The Polish team are aiming for big dreams, like investments of Europe. You also have the Nazi and World War I team. These ones are teams of people you might have heard from World War I, World War II. Yeah, they're all here. And Turkey. But now they're neutral, but they'll still cause a big threat. The National Group League. This one is not an important league in case of Europeans. It's a league that contains the transportation group, and that's how it created. The border lines. These ones are countries that, even though if not in the border next to the ocean, they control the border of the whole Europe and make this map. And finally, we have only we have 2 countries, the Council League and the Council Neutral League. These ones are 2 leagues. The Council League rules over the whole Europe, while the Council League rules only the countries that vote for the League of Council. And finally, we have the neutral states. Neutral states are led by this country only because it's neutral today. Now we explained how. I'm also going to explain what countries formed what in the past. Russia. Russia formed the Soviet Union. All these countries here could have not existed if Russia never combined with them or conquered them. All these countries here, some of them are created through Russia, or others are created through empires that ruled over Europe in the past. These ones were created through the spread of language groups of Europe. And this group were not created by any other group, but the empires in the past. And finally, this group created through the borders of two countries, and Turkey independency. Now I discussed about all Europeans. So you're wondering, which area is the most? Instead of using flags, let's use the map. But the most powerful in Europe, we have France, Britain, and Russia. The main league that helped in World War I. And here's their flags. They all control different parts of Europe. UK takes the northern part of Europe. Russia takes the eastern part. France takes the southern part of Europe. These ones are the main ones in Europe because they are a part of it. And they all allied against Germany and Italy during the war. So let's see how it played out. Let's start. Let me tell you remarkable incidents that created other countries. So let's start that. For example, we're going to talk now these countries. These countries were created due to the formance of two countries, mainly the eastern part. Now the eastern part consists of mostly the countries you're going to see right now. So these ones were here. Now between Russia, back in the day, Russia, the Russians decided to colonize these countries is because they needed help in the war. Germany was already close to Russia's borders already, like up to here, half of Poland. So he took a strip of land over here that he called them the Eastern Front. The Eastern Front broke apart into three. Slovakia, and Slovenia and Serbia. The three are still a part of that old league of Europe. Next one is the formation of Belgium. Let's reverse time a few years back when the British and French were still at war. So the British were aiming just to take over France and then progress as from there in the Napoleonic ages. They camped their sites here of this part of France. And the French people were here. So they decided to progress and start a war. The British and the French holding main key factors in these routes, but still attacked. The southern part was pushed back by the northern part of France. And then they put it as stalemate. Calling this stalemate, they call this country that they put it stalemate, Belgium. It's a stalemate between Britain and France. Netherlands. So how did Netherlands came to play? Right? Or the Dutch? The Dutch were created due to the French going to their land. Besides, there were no Dutch that time. It was Germany. So the creation of this was due to Germany and France going to war during the Napoleonic ages. The French won and called the land they conquered Netherlands, because it was so sweet that they had to stay. Now I've already discussed a few. Now let's talk about these countries. This one is very easy. It was just like it was called the National League of the North, and it was created due to the Russian Revolution. the Russian Empire colonized it in a brutal war that the Finns lost as due, and they got independence during the Soviet era, where the old monarchy was weak enough to fall. So now we explained about 5 countries in detail. Now let's move to these countries. How are they created? All of them have the same thing. They were all created due to Denmark at that time, in the era time, in the 1st century, when Denmark was lagging behind, he decided to colonize the northern neighbors. First Norway that fell under 2 weeks, then Iceland under 1 day, Sweden 5 months, and that's how they were created. Then years later, Denmark revised the Treaty of Independence, where they got independent. Next country we're talking about is Poland. Now Poland was created due to France and Germany for obvious reasons. After winning this war, the French decided to progress towards Germany's land, taking key cities. So the Germans decided to fight with heavy resources and push them back at least 2 centimeters. But they progressed through Germany and pushed them into a land. Germany and Poland were united to become, the French called this land the Polish land. That's how Poland was created. It is due to that the French invaded Germany, won over Germany, and took over an extra land to create Poland. And the next one we're going to talk about is the Soviet group. We're going to talk about the Soviet group in simple terms. All of this was created due to Russia in the past. The Russians wanted to spread from Europe. In the Russian Empire, they took over the few cities. They took Ukraine, Latvia, and Estonia, and then the rest. These countries fought for independence, but they failed due to the heavy Russian Empire's military. See? The next one, Portugal and Spain. How are these made? Long time ago, there used to be one country completely, the Spanish Empire. They went to America, they went everywhere colonizing, until the French Revolution came. The French Revolution started a war in Spain, taking out Spain completely and the coastline. Now after that war, Spain was transformed into Portugal. Portugal was the colonized Spanish. They colonized Spain. And then a war struck due to Germany. Germany came and separated the two countries, Portugal and Spain, and then both of them decided through Germany to interfere with peace. Liechtenstein. It was created due to these two countries. So how was it created? Let's talk about the Third Reich era, where Germany almost owned everything. Switzerland knew that if it doesn't do anything fast, Germany could either decide to take over it. Germany had big plans. Not only taking Europe, taking North America, South America, Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, go to space. Yeah, that's what Germany's plan was. So the Switzerlandese decided to pursue peace. They gave Germany a part of their city, Liechtenstein, for 10 years. Then Germany decided to give Liechtenstein independence for the first time. Monaco. During the French Revolution, there was an army fighting for independence in France. When they did get independence, the city asked them, Remember that money I gave you for 50 years now, France? I want my independence. So France paid them independence due to a good trade. Imagine that your ally for independence gets independent as well. The next country we're talking about is Greece. Greece was a country independent from two empires. First, the Macedonian Greek Empire that stretched out for miles and miles over. It broke down to make Greece, East and North Macedonia. Macedonia was colonized yet again to create two branches, North East Turkey and West Turkey. And then they broke down to finally make Greece and the countries is here. All of these countries here were created due to that breaking and making things. So now we're going to two cities that were created due to Italy. Now Italy was a full nation back then, spreading like wildfire, taking most of Africa like it's a day on the park. The British could not support them, so yeah. Until then, a war struck in homeland. The two countries quickly worked together to take over the whole of Italy. Italy decided to fight back, but it was too late for them to do anything. So to pursue peace, Italy said you can have your independence. That's how the two cities got independent. Now, the next one, and the obvious one, we're going to talk about, which are these countries. These countries here, like Isle of Man and Ireland. Let's go 50 years back when the first UKish people were born. Here, the UK was just being born and it was ready. But the problem is they had a neighbor nearby, two in fact, who are still millennials. They did not like the new empire ruling in those two lands of Scotland and England. It fought for over 10 years, but slowly by short, Britain used its high smart advantages and beaten them, while also colonizing America at the same time. So how did they got their independence? Now we explained about countries. Now let's explain crucial parts. From the book of the 100 Years of War. Starting off, Germany versus France. April 1969. The Germans, weakened and tired of the long struggle of France, they could not make it in through the right door, but they had to choose an invasion plan. They invaded Netherlands and Belgium, but almost succeeded. The French were weakening in high numbers, and the Germans were slowly progressing. Then America came with supply bombs ready to hit the capital. The supply jets passed by hitting Germany's capital, so the Germans fled and the French succeeded. It has been a long struggling war, but the French people died in thousands. Even with the American help, the Americans could not get ready in time, and the French were slowly struggling. That's why Britain had to stand up. Britain came to the French lines and helped, pushing slowly but surely Germany out of France. The Germans and French remained in a stalemate between Belgium and Germany. If they progress, the Germans will lose, and that's what they don't want. In August 9, 19, the Americans finally came from the south and attacked Germany. Germany and France was slowly pushed out of the land and defeated. Now this is one part of the story that believes in the French, American, and British people who participated. The next one, the invasion of Russia. The invasion of Russia started bigly and strongly. The Russians were now in the part of Asia of Russia. They were slowly progressing. Until then, the winter came, freezing the Germans in place. While the Germans were cold, the Russians pushed them out of in their place back into the capital, where they surrendered. Now, the ending war. Russia, still putting the Germans in their own country, has managed to call allies. The allies arrive at all pointing their guns at Germany. Germany was only surrounded between its capital and the allies. The allies enveloped Germany's land, taking over it and cutting it into their 4 parts. The next part of the war, the Sino-Japanese War. The Japanese wanted to expand, but the Russians were not protecting their friend China. The Chinese were living their best lives until the Japanese took over South Korea, North Korea, and now stopped. The Chinese were still scared. What if they entered the Chinese land? What if they take over it? Japan decided to have a fair bet with Russia. Russia came back from World War I, but it was too late. Japan had already taken the northern part, forcing Russia to fight. 3 men from 3 groups decide to come and unite with the Russians. The 3 groups each made their own communist China. It was a struggling war. Japan decided to take over the British area and the French. But the French and British decided to fight hard in the south. Japan was fighting 4 people at the same time, struggling with all the chaos. Japan was still standing 10 years after, when Britain was weak and tired to support both countries. So it broke down into 3 countries: UK, Ireland, and Isles of Man. Turkey has the baddest time in life, because it was not only colonized by one, it was colonized by many. We have the French, the Greece, the Armenians, who also colonized it. These countries just colonized it for the sake of colonizing. It is because Italy was a part with the enemy, Germany. So during this, how did they colonize Turkey if Germany was the ally? It was quite simple. Number 1, the British called for help through the Americans. The Americans sent out more people and they defeated Germany. After defeating Germany, Turkey was like, oh no. So Britain came, took Egypt, losing the resources. Then the other countries decided to full-on phase attack him. They surrounded it with their immense power, crushing the Turkish army and destroying Turkey. Then Turkey pledged its independence, but every time it does, the countries refused. Until then one day, Turkey finally got independence. Luxembourg, chess. Chess was created through Russia as well. It is also the next step for Eastern Europe, so Russia booked it after World II, so it can keep it. Chess and Slovakia too are also connected, so that's why it booked it in the Russian Empire. Then 10 years later, the British came and said, can you let that country free? Sure. So they let chess Slovakia free, and that's how chess got its independence. Now Romania. Romania from Eastern Europe was not like the others, but different. Now, unlike others who were a part of the Soviet Union at that time. It wasn't a part of the Soviet Union, not at all. It was just for the sake of being in the Soviet Union, because it's who wants to fight Russia in any case. So how did it got independence? Well, it protested with the rest of the other Soviet countries. Now the Russians were like, no, so they decided to stop the protest. 10 years later, the Soviet Union was cracking already from this extra protest, and they broke out, getting independence for all these following countries. Now Andorra. How was it created in the first place? Now, by now, you've been wondering, how does it look like France and Spain like combined? The truth is, they almost did. France and the Napoleonic ages wanted to progress, so they needed to take this needed to progress through Spain, so he can, spread. But Spain was like, no, at that time. So a long war began, and the war ended, with each side claiming a half of this city. Then 10 years later, Spain says, hey France, want to revise the treaty? With what? How about we connect it and make this royal arms so it can be claimed Andorra and independent? So they did, and made Andorra. And now finally, we have Cyprus, Austria, Switzerland, and these following. Now these ones were created through who? Britain, Russia, France, obviously, due to World War I, after World War I. Switzerland was made due to create peace. It is a part of Germany that was chosen to be a peaceful part, to stop Germany from ever going mad. The next one, Macedonia, was independent because they needed a safeguard in case of Switzerland fails. Azerbaijan was cut off because, it wanted to be an independent country, so they allowed. Cyprus, a part of Turkey, but they destroyed Turkey, so it became independent. Austria, a part of the old Austrian Empire, was forced to be independent. And Faroe Iceland, that was broken off from Britain. So the Allies were pursuing Japan, but it had a quick and thinking plan. All of them were only strong because they were working together. So it decided to make a knockoff defense. This is why it confuses its allies. Number one, it moved out of China completely, confusing the allies, and took over the southern part. The southern part belonged to the France. The France were now separated from the main league. The first fight began. The allies were progressing downwards, but then, yet again, they are being attacked from the north. Russia, Britain, America, Taiwan, and China were trying to progress upwards. But nope, they could not. Japan had quick thinking plans. Number one, separating the British. By attacking India, the British pursued downwards to protect their land. Only America was there. Then it went towards to Philippines. Then America split it. All the allies were falling apart and their plan was failing. Japan had a tricky move. The move was to separate every ally and still fight them. Now we only have one ally plus the two Chinas. In quick succession, while attacking the Philippines, the Americans decided to split their groups. One group will continue fighting in China, one group continues. But Japan was progressing to the one island that the Americans had. So they decided to go downwards and fight. Only the two Chinas remained. Without the allies, without proper assistance from the allies, you guessed it, the Chinese fell. The communist resumption of the north was taken down fast, then the south. Japan had successfully separated them. The Americans decided to release fighter jets so Japan cannot progress as to Hawaii, preventing them from progressing. Now, still in the Philippines, the Americans their fighter jets bombing Japan. While bombing Japan and passing it day after day, then soldier marines will come, envelop the southern part. The southern part that had millions of Americans, millions, would not stop coming. Until then, they decided to revolt against the Japanese. Thanks to the Malaysians, thanks to the Philippines, they kicked them off the island. Now it is Taiwan's time. America continued progressing into Taiwan, where Japan was busy while taking over China. Then he came to attack. Before the Japanese could come, America has taken over 2 lands. Then the Americans used those 2 lands to progress. They moved to India, where the British are still holding. And thanks to the British and Americans, they climbed over the Japanese army in Tuimak section. The French were still fighting the Japanese, but luckily help was on the way in both sides. The army crashed right into Japan before it could mobilize its army effectively. In the north, Russia was not holding strong like it used to. Japan was it was entering the borders. The 3 allies combined their power. The 4 allies destroyed the Japanese on top. Now, the problem, China. Now with that case closed, the allies decided to mobilize the army in a circular position, carrying troops everywhere. The Taiwanese, thanks to the Americans, surrounded the Japanese. Now the Japanese, with the communists hiding, were ready. It was all a trap, setting them up to the Korean Peninsula. The trap worked, and the Japanese continued living there. The trap also had a significant plan. The plan was to keep Japan contained in its country and in Korea. Until then, 10 days later, they decided to give independence to Korea. While trying to do so, America had initiated a plan, the nuke. The first development nuclear attack before anybody could realize it. The Japanese were weakened so severely. One day, China and Taiwanese soldiers just was taking a walk in the park because every Japanese was dead. They managed and told Japanese to surrender, and they did. Now let's move on to Africa, where the war is getting severe. Germany and Italy both pushing the French and British out of the land like it was nothing. The British were still struggling in the eastern and northern part, and the southern part. The French in the big land was trying. The Germans and Italians were pushing them out of their lands completely. Until then, America came to help. 50 spy jets sent American forces to the south to help of UK, and 50 forces to the north. Thanks to the splitting technique of America, it split Italy and France. America attacked Italy and destroyed Italy. Italy was kicked out and thrown aside. Now it was defeated. Now Germany. Then he did the same tactic with France, separating the German army, then crushing it. The last Germans were pushed out completely. And the final stretch, the ending of the war was close. Even the Allies could taste it, and even Italy could taste it. Now we go to the part where the enemy gets revenge on each other. Germany, seriously, he effed out because of Italy losing a lot of land, decided to invade Italy with brutal forces. But Italy, he was slowly, surely losing. Hoping that the Germans could have an advantage and take over Africa, the British decided to take it over, separating it. The French came, then did the same, closing every pathway. The Germans had only one choice, was to run to Russia, hoping that the Russians would spare their lives, but the Russians agreed no. there was no escape, no freedom for the poor Germans. And then they surrendered. Now we fully come to the end of this video. If you enjoyed the video about countries in Europe, please like and subscribe.